Thank you very much. We are self-learned. And so how do people get that this? That was
Hare Krishna, Jayagurudev, please accept my respectful obeisances. Our glories to confounder Charles Prabhupada. Our glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga.
just the idea of the organization of this first.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much for honoring this invitation, Prabhuji. We're very grateful and honored to have you here with us. Dear devotees, welcome to today's Srimad Bhagavatam. Today is the 18th day of the month of March 2025. We thank all of you for joining. So, Prabhu, more devotees will be joining as we start. And Prabhupada has chanted. So maybe I'll put the text on the screen and you can take it over from there.
Okay.
I shared this with her. She's not in disagreement with it.
I hear some in the background, some Mataji speaking.
Yeah, actually, Sadeh Prabhu was supposed to be anchoring. I'm on 2 meetings simultaneously, but I've tried to slow down that. Sorry, Prabhu.
Yes, I'll ask my kids.
Okay, the verse is on the screen.
I still hear this Mataji speaking.
Okay, let me take it off. Far away.
The policy had become.
I'll mute myself.
The survey-based one-year measures go higher, even if market-based inflation expectations haven't moved much. Yeah, I
There we have another speech, someone speaking. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So you've muted the other speakers or so that it doesn't disturb?
The other speaker is not on this platform. It's another second system. Saturday Prabhu was to be hosting you, but he's caught up with something.
All right,
So
sorry, I'm going to share the screen.
okay, you are here now. Okay,
Yeah.
you can take it over, please.
Yeah.
So can we start?
Yes.
Yes, we can start.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your invitation. And thank all of the devotees. Thank you for attending this reading from the third canto, sixth chapter. We are reading the verse number 34. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading verse 34 from the sixth chapter. Ete varna sadharmena yajanti swagurum harim shraddhayatma vishuddhyartham yajjata sahavrittibhi. Ete, all these, varna, orders of society, swadharmena, by one's own occupational duties, yajanti, worship, Swagurum, with the spiritual master, Harim, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shraddhaya, with faith and devotion, Atma, self, Vishuddhi Artam, for purifying, Yat, from whom, Jataha, born, Saha, along with, Vrittibhi, occupational duty. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. All these different social divisions were born with their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, for unconditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. Purport. Since they were born from different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord in his gigantic form, all living entities in all parts of the entire universe are supposed to be eternal servitors of the Supreme Body. Every part of our own body, such as the mouth, hands, thighs, and legs, is meant to render service to the whole. That is their constitutional position. In subhuman life, the living entities are not conscious of this constitutional position, but in the human form of life, they are supposed to know this through the system of the varnas, the social orders. As above mentioned, the Brahmana is the spiritual master of all the orders of society, and thus, Brahminical culture, culminating in the transcendental service of the Lord, is the basic principle for purifying the soul. In conditioned life, the soul is under the impression that he can become the Lord of the universe. And the last point of his misconception is to think oneself the supreme. The foolish conditioned soul does not take into account that the supreme cannot be conditioned by Maya or illusion. If the supreme were to become conditioned by illusion, where would be his supremacy? In that case, Maya or illusion would be the supreme. Therefore, because the living entities are conditioned, they cannot be supreme. The actual position of the conditioned soul is explained in this verse. All the conditioned souls are impure due to contact with the material energy in three modes of nature. Therefore, it is necessary that they purify themselves under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, who not only is a Brahmana by qualification, but must also be a Vaishnava. The only self-purifying process mentioned herein is to worship the Lord under the recognized method, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master. That is the natural way of purification, and no other method is recommended as bona fide. The other methods of purification may be helpful to come to this stage of life, but ultimately, one has to come to this last point before he attains actual perfection. Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 19th verse, confirms this truth as follows. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. So I just want to go to this verse. There's a very nice purport to this verse, which I will also read. So here at the end of this purport, Srila Prabhupada cites the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which we will read. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Purport. The living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Shri Krishna's mercy is everything, that he is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of the spiritual variegatedness, and realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus, he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva, or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. This verse is very nicely explained in the 3rd chapter, verse 14 and 15 of the Shvetashvara Upanishad. Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasrakshaha Sahasrapat Sabhumin Vishvato Vritva Tyatishtad Dashanangulam Purusha Evadam Sarvam Yadbhutam Yatshabhavyam Utamritasvayasyeshano Yad Anenatiro Hati. Lord Vishnu has thousands of heads, thousands of eyes, and thousands of feet. Entirely encompassing the whole universe, he still extends beyond it by 10 fingers' breadth. He is in fact this entire universe. He is all that was and all that will be. He is the Lord of immortality and of all that is nourished by food. In the Chandogya Upanishad, 5th canto, 1st chapter, verse 15, it is said, Nabaivacho chakshushmi nashrutrani manamishiti akchakshate prana iti eva chakshate pranohi evaitani sarvani bhavanti. In the body of a living being, neither the power to speak, nor the power to see, nor the power to hear, nor the power to think is the prime factor. It is life which is the center of all activities. Similarly, Lord Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, is the prime entity in everything. In this body, There are powers of speaking, of seeing, of hearing, of mental activities, etc. But these are not important if not related to the Supreme Lord. And because Vasudev is all-pervading and everything is Vasudev, the devotee surrenders in full knowledge. That's the 17th verse of the same chapter. So, Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshushu Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I was thinking while reading the purport to today's verse that maybe I would concentrate on the fact, which is stated in this verse specifically, that for unconditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. Here in the verse, it's stated Svagurum, with the spiritual master. So if there is a word in this modern days which has been so much perverted and used for so many mundane designations, that we have to, actually we are three words which have been misused profusely nowadays in various mundane films, mundane discussions, mundane articles, etc., etc. I will state them in consequence. First, the word guru. The word guru has been so much misinterpreted. We have nowadays a guru who teaches economics. We have a guru who is a politician. We have a guru who is actually, they call him a guru of business and guru of artificial intelligence. You name it. Using the word guru has become cheap, misinterpreted. So I will come back to that word. Then the next word, which has been completely used for mundane purposes, is the word mantra. In many articles, in many books, in newspapers, we read about the word mantra, meaning that somebody's repeating the same sentence around and again and again and again. They usually put it into context that he's using this thing, he has his own mantra. Yeah. So the word mantra has become also spoiled by mundane interpretation. And finally, the third word, which has been misused and materially misinterpreted, specifically with a film which was called Avatar. The word avatar has been used for designating some film, some mundane film with a mundane figure and with mundane, imaginary, speculative beings. And the word avatar has become a household word in the mundane sense. Yeah. Also, nowadays, in the world of artificial intelligence, we also speak of avatars. That means that any mundane, materialistic person can have his avatar, they say, in the artificial intelligence world, which means that you can have an expansion of yourself, and that expansion of yourself in the world of artificial intelligence is called an avatar, right? Yeah. In the chat boxes, you can have an avatar. So these three words, guru, mantra, and avatar, have been misused systematically. And in this way, the people have completely lost the spiritual, the deep meaning of the word guru, mantra, and avatar. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. So anyhow, I was thinking here at this word svagurum, with the spiritual master. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada actually says, the only self-purifying process mentioned herein is to worship the Lord under the recognized method, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Yeah. So that is the role of the spiritual master. Now, just to illustrate what a real spiritual master is, it's really here still once stated that the Therefore, it is necessary that they purify themselves under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master who not only is a Brahmana by qualification, but must also be a Vaishnava. Yeah? There's a very famous verse which states, Tat karmani punavipramantra tantra visharadi avaishnava guruna sasyat, Vaishnava swapacha guru. That means that even one is a Brahmana, Shat Karma Nipuna Vipra. Vipra means Brahmana, Shat Karma, who knows the 6 activities of a Brahmana, Yajan, Yajan, etc. That these 6 activities are the activities of a Vipra. Shat Karma Nipuna Vipra, Mantra, Tantra, Visharada. He's expert. A Vaishnava, if he's not a Vaishnava, he cannot be a guru. He cannot be a guru. Avaishnava guru nasasyat. Yeah. Swapacha guru. But if he is a Vaishnava, even a dog eater can be a guru. That is a statement in the Shastras. Anyhow, in the 7th chapter and many other places, of course, of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we read about the extremely rare and elevated position of a Vaishnava. And in that connection, I still hear somebody speaking there in the background. There's some other channel, I guess. Anyhow, the 7th canto, 5th chapter, verse 32, Prahlad Maharaj speaks the following verse. Naishammati stavat urukramangrim sprishyattyanartapagamo yadartaha mahiya sampado rajobhishekam nishkinchananam navrinita yavat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious, and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, in this way can one be freed from material contamination. And the purport is as follows. Becoming Krishna conscious brings about anartha apagamaha, the disappearance of all anarthas, which means the conditioning which we are reading currently in this verse number 34 of the 6th chapter, 3rd canto. That's the conditioning. So anartha apagama, the disappearance of anartha or unconditioning, the miserable conditions we have unnecessarily accepted. That's Krishna consciousness. The material body is the basic principle of these unwanted, miserable conditions. The entire Vedic civilization is meant to relieve one from these unwanted miseries. But persons, bound by the laws of nature, do not know the destination of life, as described in the previous verse. Isha Tantriam Urudamni Badha. They are conditioned by the 3 strong modes of material nature. The education that keeps the conditioned soul bound life after life is called materialistic education. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that materialistic education expands the influence of Maya. Such an education induces the conditioned soul to be increasingly attracted to materialistic life and to stray further and further away from liberation from unwanted miseries. One may ask, why highly educated persons do not take to Krishna consciousness? The reason is explained in this verse. Unless one takes shelter of a bona fide, fully Krishna conscious spiritual master, there is no chance of understanding Krishna. The educators, scholars, and big political leaders, worshipped by millions of people, cannot understand the goal of life and take to Krishna consciousness, for they have not accepted a bona fide spiritual master and the Vedas. Therefore, in the Mundaka Upanishad, 3rd canto, 2nd chapter, verse 3, it is said, Nayamat pravachanena labhyo na medhaya, na bahuna shrutena. One cannot become self-realized simply by having an academic education, by presenting lectures in a erudite way, pravachanena labhya, or by being an intelligent scientist who discovers many wonderful things. One cannot understand Krishna unless one is graced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only one who has surrendered to a pure devotee of Krishna and taken the dust of his lotus feet can understand Krishna. First, one must understand how to get out of the clutches of Maya. The only means is to become Krishna conscious. And to become Krishna conscious very easily, one must take shelter of a realized soul, a Mahat or Mahatma, whose only interest is to engage in the service of the Supreme Lord. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 13th verse, Mahatmanastumam partha daivim prakritimashritah bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadimavyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Therefore, to end the unwanted misery of life, one must become a devotee. Yastasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunaistatra samasate suraha. One who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna consistently manifests all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods. This is a verse from the 5th canto, 18th chapter, 12th verse. Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata gurau tasyaite katita hyarta prakashanti mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of the Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. This is a verse from the Shvetashvara Upanishad, 6th chapter, 23rd verse. Yam evaisha vrinuta tena labhyas tasyaisha atma vivrinute tanum svam. The Lord is obtained only by one who he himself chooses. To such a person he manifests his own form. And this is a verse from the Mundaka Upanishad, 3rd canto, 2nd verse, 2nd chapter, 3rd verse. These are Vedic injunctions. One must take shelter of a self-realized spiritual master, not a materially educated scholar or politician. One must take shelter of a nishkinchana, a person engaged in devotional service and free from material contamination. That is the way to return home back to Godhead. So this verse is extremely conducive to understanding the position of a true spiritual master or a guru. He has to be nishkinchana. Nishkinchana means devotee who have nothing to do with this material world. And that is something which we have experienced with His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, when he was physically present with us on this planet. And that is the same experience we have by associating with Srila Prabhupada in his Vani form, meaning his books and his recorded lectures and conversations. Srila Prabhupada was a Nishkinchana, meaning he has nothing to do with the material world. That was something which we were, and still are, extremely thankful that we've met such a personality who has nothing to do with the material world. His only purpose was to serve his Guru Maharaj and to instruct us how we can, as is stated at the end of this purport, how we can go return home back to Godhead. It was actually in the days when Srila Prabhupada was still in India, and he didn't have his movement, he didn't have his disciples. Already then, he wrote to one of his friends that he is determined to return back home, back to Godhead, and he would be most fortunate or his mission would be to take as many people with him, as many people with him. So that was his mission, to return home back to Godhead and take as many people with him. Now, I have since long looked at a book which I've got somewhere or other. I don't know who gave it to me. It was published in 1988 by one of my godbrothers, Veerabahu Das, the Guru, and what Prabhupada said. The book was published in days where our movement was going through various ordeals, mainly due to the fact that we had experienced gurus who were more or less elected gurus in those days, or self-manifested gurus, and as you might say, who weren't nishkinchana, meaning that they were interested in name, fame, glory. They were interested in being worshipped. In other words, they were not real nishkinchana, as the definition here is stated, the devotee who have nothing to do with this material world. And the contrary, they had a lot to do with the material world, so much so that at a certain point they became so contaminated by the three modes of material nature, particularly passion and ignorance, that they somehow or other left the movement, or fell down, one would say. So this book, The Guru and What Prabhupada Said, was published as a reaction to these misunderstandings. And the devotee who wrote this book, Veerabahu Prabhu, has made a big research in all the letters, lectures, books, etc., that Prabhupada wrote, spoke, to define what is a guru. I will not go too much into the details of this book, which is, of course, reflecting the times, places, and circumstances in those days. That means the 80s and the late 80s. As I said, the book was published in 1988, which was a very crucial moment in the history of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, where specifically the question of so-called zonal gurus has been shown as a very counterproductive way of becoming spiritually conscious and Krishna conscious. Yeah. So I would just like to read from one part of this book, which are various quotations either from Srimad Bhagavatam or from conversations or from letters written by Srila Prabhupada. So this is a quotation from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, 16th chapter, verse 23. This is in the purport. Sometimes less intelligent men ask whether one has to approach a guru to be instructed in devotional service for spiritual advancement. The answer is given here. Indeed, not only here, but also in Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna accepted Krishna as his guru, Shishyasteham Svarimam Tvam Prapannam. The Vedas also instruct Tat Vijnanartham Sagurum Eva Abhigachet. One must accept a guru for proper direction if one is seriously inclined toward advancement in spiritual life. The Lord says that one must worship the Acharya, who is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Acharya Mam Vijaniyat. One should definitely understand this. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that the Guru is the manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, according to all the evidence given by the Shastra and by the practical behavior of devotees, one must accept a guru. Aditi accepted her husband as her guru so that he could direct her how to advance in spiritual consciousness, devotional service, by worshiping the Supreme Lord, which corroborates today's verse. The spiritual master instructs how to advance in spiritual consciousness, devotional service by worshiping the Supreme Lord. It is a fact that the Guru's activities are described in our daily prayer, which we sing every morning at Mangal Arti. Shri Vigraharadhara Nityanana Shringaratan Mandiramadjanado Yuktasya Bhaktam Shanyunjatopi Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. Shri Vigraharadhara Nityanana, the spiritual master, worships the form, Shri Vigraha, of Srimati Radharani and Krishna, Radha Krishna or Gonitai, Shri Vigraha Radhara Nityanana Shringara, and teaches, he himself decorates the deities, Shringara, Tanmandira Marjanaro, and cleansing the temple. These are activities performed by the bona fide spiritual master. Now, I will read from the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's another very beautiful purport that Prabhupada wrote, third canto, 7th chapter, verse 39. There are many inexperienced persons who advocate self-realization without the help of a spiritual master. They decry the necessity of the spiritual master and try themselves to take his place by propagating the theory that a spiritual master is not necessary. Srimad Bhagavatam, however, does not approve this viewpoint. Even the great transcendental scholar Vyasadeva had need of a spiritual master, and under the instruction of his spiritual master Narada, he prepared this sublime literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. Even Lord Chaitanya, although he is Krishna himself, accepted a spiritual master. Even Lord Krishna accepted a spiritual master, Sandipani Muni, in order to be enlightened, and all the acharyas and saints of the world had spiritual masters. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna accepted Krishna as his spiritual master, although there was no question about the necessity of accepting a spiritual master. The only stipulation is that the spiritual master be bona fide. Specifically, the spiritual master must be in the proper chain of disciplic succession called the parampara system. Next is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, first chapter, verse 35. One should always remember that a person who is reluctant to accept a spiritual master and be initiated is sure to be baffled in his endeavor to go back to Godhead. One who is not properly initiated may present himself as a great devotee, but in fact, he is sure to encounter many stumbling blocks on his path of progress towards spiritual realization, with the result that he must continue his term of material existence without relief. Such a helpless person is compared to a ship without a rudder. It's a very nice statement here, a helpless person. That's something which we sometimes are not aware of, that once, if we don't have a spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master, we're helpless. Yeah, this is the nature of the conditioned soul, as is stated in today's verse. So it's like compared to a ship without a rudder. The comparison is very nice. I don't know if any one of you have ever sailed a ship. I remember when I was a young man, we had a small ship. My friend and I, we were even doing racing with this ship. And the rudder, which means the thing that you use to direct your ship left, right, when the wind changes, you have to know how to use the rudder. So if you are in the middle of the ocean or in a lake or wherever on a sail ship and you don't have a rudder, you're in trouble, big trouble, because you cannot know which way to go. Then ultimately you're lost. Yeah. For such a ship can never reach its destination. It is imperative, therefore, that one accept a spiritual master if he at all desires to gain the favor of the Lord. The service of the spiritual master is essential. If one thinks that he is above consulting anyone else, including a spiritual master, he is at once an offender at the lotus feet of the Lord. Such an offender can never go back to Godhead. It is imperative that a serious person accept a bona fide spiritual master in terms of the Shastric injunctions. Srila Jiva Goswami advises that one not accept a spiritual master in terms of hereditary or customary social and ecclesiastical conventions. One should simply try to find a genuine, qualified spiritual master for actual advancement in spiritual understanding. This is a purport in the first chapter of the Adi Lila, verse 35. And maybe I will skip this because I found some very nice quotations, which most of we never heard of. Yeah. So here are several functions. This is from, you wouldn't believe it, this is from a book that Prabhupada wrote in India, Easy Journey to Other Planets. I don't know if anyone has from you read this book, Easy Easy Way to Spirit, Easy Journey to Other Planets, EGTOP, Easy Journey to Other Planets. Prabhupada wrote it, I think, in 1958 as a monography. It was an amazing little booklet. Most of the devotees even forgot that it exists. I remember personally, this was one of the books that really opened my eyes to spiritual life and to the deep meaning of spiritual existence. I was on Sankirtan many years ago in a small town in the little state of Liechtenstein, which is a small little country next to Switzerland. And there was one man whom I met. He had a gallery, art gallery, and I went to see him, and he greeted me with his outstretched arms, which I was quite surprised, saying, "Ah, Hare Krishna, you are the ones who will replace Christendom in the world." I was shocked when I heard that. I'll never forget it. He was very much concerned and convinced about the deep meaning of the Krishna consciousness movement, the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement, would I say. Anyhow, the fact of the matter is that he was completely convinced about Krishna consciousness through the book Easy Journey to Other Planets. And every time I came, he asked me, did I give him 5, 6, sometimes even 10 volumes of this Easy Journey to Other Planets, which is a small booklet, maybe 50, 60 pages, that he would distribute to all his friends and acquaintances. He was doing Sankirtan. He was an elderly gentleman, but this book really helped him. So here is the following. The following details outline a general practice by which one can prepare himself for an easy journey to the Vaikuntha anti-material planets, where life is free from birth, old age, disease, and death. General practice, positive functions. Number 1. The serious candidate must accept a bona fide spiritual master in order to be trained scientifically. Because the senses are material, it is not at all possible to realize the transcendence by them. Therefore, the senses have to be spiritualized by the prescribed method under the direction of the spiritual master. Number 2, when the student has chosen a bona fide spiritual master, he must take the proper initiation from him. This marks the beginning of spiritual training. When the student has chosen a bona fide spiritual master, he must take the proper initiation from him. This marks the beginning of spiritual training. This is a very important aspect of Krishna consciousness. Sometimes, as we've read before, people think that we don't need to be initiated by a spiritual master, that we can become advanced in spiritual life just on our own. But it's not a fact. It's not a fact. We have to become properly initiated from him. It is something like when you study, when you consider medical science, Now, somebody can say, okay, so I'll buy all the medical books that I can find and I'll read them. There are many people who we call them quacks. In Africa, we have hundreds of these kind of sort of shamans who so-called can heal others because they have been inspired by some kind of ghost. But real medicine is something different. Real medicine is that you go and attend medical college, and under the direction of a proper medical scientist, or if you're in another tradition of healing, it's possible also, of course, uh, you have to be initiated by that person. That initiation at the university level is absolutely crucial. You cannot just come to university and start studying just like that without accepting the authority of the teachers. Actually, you have to be initiated. Even if some of you went to attended university, have been experiencing that at the end of the bachelor or master program, one is dressed in a specific robe and he gets initiated by the rector or by the dean or both, by the college of professors. He becomes initiated as a proper bachelor, as a proper master student. Actually, you cannot become a master student unless you have accomplished all the necessary initiative and initiations in knowledge of a bachelor level. So initiation is absolutely crucial. That was number 2. Number 3, the candidate must be prepared to satisfy the spiritual master in every way. A bona fide spiritual master who is fully cognizant of the method of spiritual science, learned in the spiritual scriptures such as Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Upanishads, and who is also a realized soul who has made a tangible connection with the Supreme Lord, is the transcendent medium by which the willing candidate is led to the path of the Vaikunthas. The spiritual master must be satisfied in all respects, because simply by his good wishes, a candidate can make wonderful progress along the path. It's a science. Krishna consciousness is a science, and the professor who teaches this science has to be nishkinchana, with no interest in this material world. A devotee who has nothing to do with material world, that's the definition here in the 7th canto, nishkinchana, nothing to do with this material world. That is the proper spiritual master. As long as a spiritual master is interested in this material world, in whatever aspect it is, he cannot be called nishkinchan. He is akinchan, which means that he is attached to the material world, and he cannot be a bona fide spiritual master. Number 4, the intelligent candidate places intelligent questions to the spiritual master in order to clear his path of all uncertainties. The spiritual master shows the way, not whimsically, but in accordance with the principles of the authorities who have actually traversed the path. The names of these authorities are disclosed in the scriptures, and one has simply to follow them under the direction of the spiritual master. The spiritual master never deviates from the path of the authorities. And here we have some letters that Prabhupada wrote. This is a letter that was written in 1967 to Yadurani. In the Shastras, it is said that spiritual advance of life is achieved through the combined mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna. Those who are sincere souls, Krishna helps them to have a bona fide spiritual master. And the bona fide spiritual master helps the disciple approach Krishna. This is the process. In a letter to Shivananda Prabhu in 1968, he wrote, "You should know that without the instructions of the spiritual master, that there is no question of devotional service." Yeah. And in a letter to Nityananda Prabhu in 1971, he writes the following: "It is a basic principle that one must accept a bona fide spiritual master in order to achieve the highest perfection of life, love of God. I thank all of you very much for accepting me as your spiritual master, and I promise that I will take you back home, back to Godhead. I ask you all to promise me to always chant at least 16 rounds, follow the regulative principles, read our books, and try to preach this Krishna consciousness all over the world. So, for my qualifications are concerned, I am simply trying to carry out the order of my spiritual master. So there are many other texts which I could read in this chapter, which is called, Is the Guru really necessary? Tasmat Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasu Shreya Uttama. One should accept a spiritual master, Tasmat Guru Prapadyeta Jigyasu Shreya Uttama. When one is interested in the Shreyas, Prayas, there's two aspects of the goals in life. Prayas is called the immediate pleasure. The immediate pleasure means sense gratification. The immediate pleasure means having possessions of some things. There are so many immediate pleasures. The best example is the immediate pleasure is a ice cream. You go and buy some ice cream when it's very hot, and the immediate pleasure of the tongue connected with this cooling and cold ice cream is called prayas. Yeah? And shreyas is the ultimate goal. So the spiritual life means, in fact, that we are interested, shreya jigyasu, that we are inquisitive about the ultimate shreyas, the ultimate good of life. Yeah. That is extremely important. Sometimes devotees seek initiation from a guru out of a sentiment, out of, I would say, fashion. Oh, this man has a guru, I want also a guru, without being actually very much sincere, Shreya Jigyasu, without actually being inquisitive, without actually asking the question about what is the ultimate aim of existence. One has to be inquisitive about this. One has to be eager. Jigyasu means eager. Nowadays, many people, or I would say a lot of people, even devotees, they are jigyasu about how to make money, how to become happy in this material world. They're jigyasu, they're very much inquisitive. How to make money with crypto. Crypto means bitcoins. Many devotees get completely involved in these things. They become inquisitive. They join all kind of virtual conferences and workshops, and because they're very much eager to make money, to have become rich, to buy a nice car, to buy a nice house, to travel here and there, to be free, to enjoy. They are very much jigyasu for these things, which is prayas, which means immediate pleasure, mainly pleasure with this life. In this life, they're not interested in going back home, back to Godhead. That was something that our generation, when we joined Srila Prabhupada in the 70s, 80s, when Srila Prabhupada, 70s actually, 60s, 70s, when Prabhupada was physically present on this planet, he made us very much eager to become inquisitive about the ultimate goal, because we've seen how happy and how completely detached Srila Prabhupada was. He had nothing to do with this material world. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Wherever he appeared, people were shocked to meet such a personality who had nothing to do with this material world. Yeah, that is the power of parampara. Because his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, had nothing to do with this material world. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, although he was a magistrate, although he was an extremely important personality in the government in those days in Bengal and Odisha, he had nothing to do with this material world. Nishkinchana, um, Jagannath Das Babaji Nishkinchana, or Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj Nishkinchan. These are all Vaishnavas who have nothing to do with this material world. And their aim is to go back home, back to Godhead, and take as many people with them. And so in Prabhupada's days, when Prabhupada was physically present with us, it was evident that his mission was to go back home, back to Godhead. And he was not interested in the things of this material world. So the today's verse, I still read it once again because it's important. All these different social divisions are born with their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, for unconditional life, meaning life in the spiritual world, and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. Yeah. So this is essential, to worship the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And initiation, as we have read, is compulsory. It is not that it is optional. It is compulsory if you really want to go back home, back to Godhead. Yeah, but of course, to accept initiation, one has to find a bona fide spiritual master who is nishkinchana, who has no material desires, and oneself must be very sincere. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti Tagyanam Jnanastatvadarshinaha. The spiritual master has to be served. Tasmat Gurum Prapajeta Jigyasu Shriyatamam. Tadvidhi Pranipatena. First one has to surrender. Pratishta Rupena Nipat. That is essential, you know. It's not that we need a cleaner for the floor. Many people just offer their dandavats in front of Prabhupada Vyasasan or in front of the deities. In a mentality that's, you know, that here I'm doing this because it's everybody does it, right? But one should actually consciously offer one's obeisances, dandavats, with the aim of pranipat, surrendering to the spiritual master. And surrender is not a sentimental thing. Being unsurrendered is, unfortunately, nowadays very fashionable, you know. Be your own man, you know. Don't surrender, never surrender. This is not the path to go back home, back to Godhead. So one has to be tatvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. One should ask relevant questions, and one should serve the spiritual master. You know, we serve the Guru Maharaj, the Guru. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam. And the spiritual master, upadeshani, means in imparts knowledge or gives knowledge. Upadeshanti jnaninas tatvadarshina. A spiritual master is tatvadarshi, meaning that he is the seer of the truth. That is the spiritual master. So with these words, thank you very much for your attention. I will not continue with my presentation, although I could speak a lot about the necessity of accepting a spiritual master. And as I stated at the very start of my presentation, the word guru has been so misused that many people don't even understand what it really means, who is actually a guru, and why we should accept a guru. There are so many bogus gurus nowadays who present themselves on YouTube. You can follow many, many various gurus who will tell you this, who will tell you that, but they're bogus because they're materially motivated. They're not spiritually motivated. They don't want to go back to Godhead because they don't even believe in that there is a God. Okay, thank you very much, Hare Krishna. If there are any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful presentation. And we apologize for the initial technical glitch we had, but somehow it's been very beautiful. Dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, realizations, you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question or share your perspective. Hare Krishna. It's so beautiful. Just Today is Tuesday. Last week, Friday, I was having a conversation with two people, and something came across, and I said, Mahatma Gandhi is actually not a Mahatma, according to the definition of Mahatma. And these two people said, how can I say that? Because I'm saying that based on my own judgment. Others also judged, and they concluded that he's great. So if I said that Mahatma is not a great individual, then I may be offending those who believe that he is a Mahatma, he's a great soul. So luckily for me, I spoke a little bit just like you spoke today, that Mahatma is not an English original word. It is a different language. And in that language, Mahatma does not mean someone who fights to liberate material political independence of his nation. But it means one who has realized God and surrendered to a spiritual master. So, and I was talking about, like, we use guru for different people. It's a guru of sports, a guru of this. All these things, they are not right. So I'm so glad that you echoed what I shared, and it makes me feel a little bit okay with myself that at least I was doing the right thing. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. And with that, we go to His Grace, Shriman Vara Acharya Prabhu. Please, you may unmute. Shriman Acharya Prabhu.
Please accept humble obeisances, Prabhu. All glories to Prabhupada. Thank you very much. The subject we discussed today, it's a very important subject, and it's full of information. It actually draws so many questions also from any serious practitioners, and who has also follow the spiritual tradition on this line, on this path. So many questions are bound to be raised based on some of the points we discussed. First, I have one comment and then a question. The first comment is, yes, many Sanskrit words are getting popular in the West. And seemingly, they are like being bastardized. But at the same time, it's also evident of how Vedic knowledge is becoming popularized. Because the best way you can know the influence of a culture is when its language is getting accepted, publicly. So I think there are both sides to that. Now my question is, we have so many references in the scripture that says take a guru, have a guru, the necessity of having a spiritual master. Again and again. And it seems like, well, it's easy to be understood on the face value. However, there is another misconception stemming from this, especially maybe in our own institution. What is that misconception? Today, we really don't know whether people are accepting a spiritual master or they are accepting an institution. Whether they are actually surrendering to a guru or they're just surrendering to the institution. So, and there's still not any clear-cut division on what is this position of a student in ISKCON in respect of his loyalty to his guru or loyalty to the institution. So this has to be, maybe you can help us to understand better, because actually the scripture never says surrender to an institution, accept the guru. But because Prabhupada had created this institution, we love it. But today it's become, well, anyway, many things can be said, like you rightly mentioned in your discourses also. So at what point does an aspirant find himself really accepting somebody he really loves and is loyal to him to the end, or is only doing that officially, but his loyalty is to the institution? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So first, to your comment, yes, you are absolutely right that the words which are now becoming very common, like guru, mantra, avatar, that they have entered the language of people, that definitely has, as you have said, also a positive side, in the sense that somehow or other these words entered into the language of the people. Definitely, one can consider it in this way. From my point of view, I'm still quite reluctant to accept this, because it's sort of like, losing the meaning of these words is something which is absolutely horrible. It's something like if the demons, they would use these words simply to ridicule these words, to show that these words, maybe you have heard this word, you have read this word in this Bhagavatam, okay, we will just ridicule this word and say that, you repeat all these stupid things like mantras, right? So people in their conscience, they have understood that mantra is horrible. It's something repeating the same thing, blah, 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 blah. That's a mantra, which means that when we present them a mantra, they think, oh, we don't know any mantras. Mantras are, bah, you know. The same thing goes with the guru. If the people think that the guru of business management, the guru of sports, etc., is a guru, then we say we have a guru and say, well, I have my guru. So in many ways, the demons, I would say clearly, misuse these words to take people away from spiritual life instead of bringing them. The word avatar, for example, I made audiobooks. I make audiobooks for children, and I made the whole Krishna book, and I gave the name Krishna Avatar so that the people know what it means. The word avatar, avataram, means that he descends from the spiritual world, from the world without anxiety, Vaikuntha, and to the world of anxiety. So this is just to elaborate a little more on your comment, which I do understand that it entered the hearsay of the people, but most of the time it didn't enter in the proper way, and it sort of like ridicules these words like mantra and avatar, being some kind of a Hollywood monster, yeah. So this is just through the comment, although I do appreciate the fact that you have mentioned these words. So as far as surrendering to a guru or to an institution, uh, in general, we had the advantage of Srila Prabhupada's presence. Uh, disciples, weird disciples of Srila Prabhupada, like your Guru Maharaj and many other spiritual masters. We had the incredible honor and at the same time the chance, unbelievable chance, to surrender to Srila Prabhupada. Yes, I don't think that any one of us disciples of Srila Prabhupada had ever thought of surrendering to an institution. We would never surrender to an institution. But the fact of the matter is that Srila Prabhupada set up an institution, and that institution has specific aspects of it, mainly managerial aspects to it, and also activities which are inherent to any institution and any organization. And out of love or out of surrender to the Guru, we are abiding by the laws, one could say, or the prescriptions given, or the organization of an institution. We call it also Vaishnava etiquette, right? That we honor Vaishnava etiquette, not an institution per se, but the Vaishnava etiquette, respecting elders, respecting an organization, respecting the spiritual masters who have the duty to initiate disciples nowadays. It's more or less like, it becomes sort of like um, an aspect of surrender to Srila Prabhupada. In general, I would say that we, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, we had the chance to surrender directly to Srila Prabhupada. But those who are disciples of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they actually, if they're disciples, if their gurus who are disciples of Srila Prabhupada lead them to the same understanding that they have to surrender to Srila Prabhupada. In other words, being a transparent media is absolutely crucial, and we actually surrender to Krishna. That's the whole thing, because Krishna is the Adi Guru, he's the original Guru. And Srila Prabhupada, as a transparent media, taught us how to surrender to Krishna, and we surrendered through Srila Prabhupada. We were surrendering to Krishna, not to an institution, right? But naturally, by respect and by, I would say, surrender, obedience, that's the word, yeah, that obedience is the first law of discipline. I think that's a statement. Obedience is the first law of discipline. So if you're a disciple, you have to be obedient. And Prabhupada taught us obedience not only as far as the sadhana is concerned, but also in respect to the organization that he founded for spreading Krishna consciousness. So being obedient to the principles and laws and organization of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that is a show about, that is a proof of being surrendered to the Guru, not to the institution. Yeah. So you're absolutely right that one should only surrender to Guru, and his Guru should be the one who guides him to surrender to Krishna. That's the parampara system. Yeah. So, but the institution definitely has been established by Srila Prabhupada, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and he established it with specific principles and with specific organizational systems, like the Governing Board of Commissioners, the GBC, the regional secretaries, and other authorities in our movement ministries, the various ministries of agriculture, Ministry of Education. All these aspects of the organization of ISKCON are important, and we are not surrendering to the institution as itself, but we are respecting and are obedient to this institution, to the people who are responsible for this institution, out of surrender to the spiritual master. Yeah. Of course, this can be misused, as it has been in the 80s by several of our unfortunate godbrothers, and then one acts in a way which is irrational, and one acts in a way which is, I would say, alienating. Sometimes it's the fact that when people are led by someone who is not very conscientious or not surrendered, that's the word still, they can be alienated, and alienation is a terrible thing. Anyone who is alienated, he can do any stupid thing because he alienated. We've seen this not only in spiritual movements, but mainly we see this in political movements, how some politicians are expert in alienating people to do things which are completely irrational.
Le cuisard. C'est pas encore fait. Il a fait ça, mais il me semble que. Comme ça.
Sorry, Jayagurudeva Prabhu. Shrimara Prabhu, were you asking a question or you were speaking to someone else?
Sorry, somebody was interrupting. I'm sorry, but I have a follow-up question anyway.
All right, you may go ahead.
Okay, Prabhu, thank you very much. So we have situations where we have situations where there is a question of whether your devotion, your surrender is to your guru or is to the institution. That is why I'm asking this question. That when you are faced with this kind of situation, what do you do? There is often, for instance, the institution may take a position in order to be politically correct in the society. What will make the society more acceptable? But a self-realized guru may not accept that, may feel, no, this is not spirituality. But then, in the name of cooperation, and like you said, obedience, you are supposed to follow that. And if you don't, you may be considered a rebel. So this is not part of the scripture. And that is why I said this subject is a very delicate subject matter. When the institution takes the front, there is dealing of fear and lack of love, less of love. When the personality, the guru takes the front, there is like the relationship of Prabhupada disciples and Srila Prabhupada, so much of love. But nowadays, there is the official dealings. And it's not only limited to ISKCON. Many, like Christian institutions, Christian churches, like Catholic Church, they have official position in most cases, which are not scriptural. And then the Reverend Father will tell you, this is the position of the church. We cannot do otherwise. But we know that what you're saying is true. So gradually, our devotion to ISKCON is also coming to that point. But why I'm raising this point is because of the many quotations you made about surrendering to a guru, which is repeatedly telling us it's to the person and it's not necessarily to an organization. So this is a very important point. The last point I would like to make in connection to that. So for this reason also, for the same singular reason, we have seen so many fragmentations in the Christendom, because based on the inspiration or the style, the mood of a particular Christian leader, he will found his own movement. And in the beginning, they were frowned upon, but at long run, most of them have actually contributed to saving Christianity from collapsing. So this is historical. And we are part of a new paradigm, a new dimension of spirituality coming from the East and all that. So I like the way you develop the discourse, but at the same time, there are these nuances which I would like you to address or throw some light. Thank you.
JAYAGURUDEVA, Prabhu, sorry, you are muted. If you may unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So thank you very much for your comments, and I must say that you are absolutely right for us as far as what we have been experiencing, mainly, as I said, in the 80s, 90s to a certain extent, to a lesser extent in the last 20 years, to a lesser extent, but in the first 20 years after Srila Prabhupada's departure, we have been confronted with the institutions which went a little bit astray in some parts of the world. And devotees have been manipulated, alienated, that's the word, to follow a person who was not a pure devotee, to say the least, and who had invented his own methods of worship. And it was actually very embarrassing. I personally had also been a little bit in this unfortunate situation to be manipulated by my, in those days, authorities, I must say. So, yeah, the fact of the matter is that we have in our movement, and this is, I would come back here now to the verse that we have read today because it's relevant also to this question, that it's written here in the purport by Srila Prabhupada that every part of our body, such as mouth, hands, thighs, and legs, is meant to render service to the whole. That is their constitutional position. In subhuman life, the living entities are not conscious of this constitutional position, but in the human form of life, they are supposed to know this through the system of varnas, the social orders. Now, Srila Prabhupada, before he passed from our vision, from our mundane vision, he is several times referred to this varna and, of course, ashrama system, which he didn't have time to install in our movement. And we have seen mainly in the, as I said, the first 20 years of our movement, which is a very short time, we have seen discrepancies which were based on the lack of understanding of Varna and Ashrama system, right? Specifically, I would say the Ashrama system means brahmachari, sannyasi as the celibate personalities, and the grihastas and vanaprasthas as the married or living in a married or, let's say, vanaprastha, renounced, retired life. We have not understood the meaning of the ashramas, and thus many things changed. When Prabhupada was with us, I was just writing an article about this. When Srila Prabhupada was with us, we were young people. We were young. Most of us were, 20s, 30s, and we embraced wholeheartedly the brahmachari ashram. And some of us took sannyas without understanding their responsibilities, and unfortunately became victims of Maya. But the brahmachari ashram was very popular in those days. Today, scarcely 10% of the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness are brahmacharis. 90% are grihastas. And in the times of Srila Prabhupada, 90% were brahmacharis and only 10% were grihastas. So the situation was quite different. The institution which Prabhupada installed, the membership, the base of the membership base were brahmacharis, renounced people. We were living practically without any possessions. None of us had bank accounts. None of us had possessions. We had just, even in the very early days, we used to go and burn our so-called karmi clothes or jeans and everything. And we had only one or two dhotis, a Brahman underwear, a gamsha, and that was all, And we were just completely renounced, and the institution was made for such renounced people. There was no misuse of funds in those days. Of course, there was, but it was just occasional. So when Srila Prabhupada left the planet, things started to evolve. We became older, and many of us, including myself, got married, and less and less brahmacharis in our movement were present, and just a few sannyasis survived the great death of so many sannyasis. So many sannyasis either left the movement because they were alienated by their authorities and joined other movements in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, in other ashrams, or they simply left and said goodbye to the whole spiritual path. So these are situations which are caused mainly that we have not, until now, basically, coped very well with the Varna and ashrama system. At the time of Srila Prabhupada, it was completely different because we just basically had one ashram, and that was brahmachari and brahmacharinis and some grihastas with children, but there were just a few of them. Nowadays, it's just the contrary. We have practically all of the grihastas with children and with responsibilities of making money with bank accounts, etc., etc., and just a few real brahmacharis. They're a very rare species of brahmacharis and sannyasis. Many of the sannyasis also have sometimes misunderstood the fact that they cannot have any bank accounts and cars and properties and things like that. And they kind of like misunderstood that the sannyasi, we usually address them as Maharaj, but Maharajas, or in one way, somehow also Maharajas in the financial world, that they have like the very wealthy bank accounts, and then of course there comes more and more misunderstanding. So my point is that at the present moment, our Hare Krishna movement is barely 60 years old. Next year, there will be the celebration of the 60 years of the foundation of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness in New York. 60 years is a very short historical period. And I'm hopeful that in the next 60 years, we will become more consolidated, and maybe due to the political and economic situation which we're facing currently, which may turn in the favor of spirituality, anyhow, maybe, we may implement the proper Varna ashrama system, which will allow the institution to be healthy and not be I would say, crippled, that's the word, crippled by internal factions, crippled by manipulation, crippled by unduly materialistic persons who identify themselves with the institution and make the institution an instrument for their own aggrandizement. These things are going on, unfortunately, but I'm confident that within the next 60 years, things will evolve, hopefully. And I think that we will have, in the next 100 years or 200 years, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness become more solid, and then surrendering to Guru will be clearly surrender to Guru and not to the institution. The institution will support the surrender to Guru, not that we will be surrendering to the institution instead of to the Guru, as you have unfortunately observed in many places. But anyhow, I'm hopeful, and I'm confident that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which was founded by Srila Prabhupada with a great, I would say, mission that is going back home, back to Godhead, that it will continue, and that we should become, we should remain obedient to this institution and not be too critical of things which can sometimes, unfortunately, hamper the development of this institution. And we should just simply, as Prabhupada stated again and again and again and again, chant 16 rounds and follow the four regulative principles. Yeah, that is the real surrender to the spiritual master. And all the other things, they may be accepted, and we should be always respectful, not get involved in politics too much if it's possible. That is the nature of the grihastas. They like to be involved in politics, But as I said, when we were brahmacharis, when I was a brahmachari, at least I remember, we didn't care for politics. For us, the only thing was to serve the spiritual master day in, day out, and we had no possessions. As soon as one becomes enamored with material things, money and followers, property, things like that, the thing when becomes influenced by this, then things can become very bad. Prabhupada had the same experience in Gaudiya Math. For your information, Prabhupada never surrendered to the institution of Gaudiya Math. You know, he surrendered completely to his Guru Maharaj, and he kept out of the Gaudiya Math. He didn't criticize the Gaudiya Math directly, or he didn't make revolutions, but he didn't participate. He never became a member of the, like, he never founded his own movement like many of his god brothers did in India. In the sense that he kind of like, uh, insisted that he is the right follower of Bhaktisiddhanta, and his Gaudiya Math, Prabhupada's Gaudiya Math in that connection would be, no. He completely became aloof from the politics and from the, I would say, internal strifes which were going on after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left. And his idea was to go his own personal way without infringing or fighting with the Gaudiya Math. And in this connection, he founded first the League of Devotees in Gyansi, which unfortunately didn't work out. But if you read the statuses of the League of Devotees, that was like the seed of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And then he founded his International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which was completely an organization which was completely beyond Gaudiya Math. It didn't have anything to do with Gaudiya Math, which means that Gaudiya Math at a certain point also got a little bit, I would say, envious of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada states it in many places. So that's a fact. So he founded an institution with a great mission, and this institution is going on nicely with various problems. And as I said at the start, those problems are connected, I would say, with the lack of implementation of the Varnashram system, the proper implementation of the Varnas. Here is stated in the purport, the constitutional position in subhuman life, the living entities are not conscious of this constitutional position. But in the human form of life, they are supposed to know this through the system of varnas, the social orders. Yeah. So that's what I would say for your question.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the elaborate answer to the question. Shri Harichakra Prabhu, please give me unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Oh, here's my friend, my driver. Hare Krishna.
No, that is not the driver.
That's another driver.
Yeah. Your friend, the driver is also here. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is in line with what Prabhu said about the misuse of the word guru. When we go back, I know in Mahabharata, we usually refer to Kripachaya as the guru of the Kuru dynasty. And at the same time, we also refer to Jaya as being the guru of the Dronacharya as being the guru of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And we know, practically speaking, Dronacharya was there teaching them the art of war. So, can you give me, clear this air for me? Because if we refer to Dronacharya as the guru for the Pandavas and the Kauravas, he was only teaching them the art of war. Yet we refer to him as the guru. And we know Kripachaya, he was like the guide. He's supposed to guide the whole Kuru dynasty. So he's, by definition, the definition that you are giving us now, it means Kripachaya was supposed to be the actual guru for that Kuru dynasty. So can you, am I making sense with my question?
Yes. Sure. You're making sense. So can I answer?
Yeah, I think he's done with his question. Yes.
Should I answer?
Yes, Prabhuji.
I can go ahead. The fact of the matter is that we are in a tradition where we have Vaishnava gurus. But in the Vedic times, and maybe even still today, the word guru refers also to a teacher of a specific skill. That's a fact, but not, I would say, a mundane skill like doing business and doing cinema and doing politics and I don't know what still, marketing guru. This is very much mundane. The word guru in general means, of course, a teacher. That's the word, guru. In our case, in the case of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, our gurus are Vaishnavas. And therefore I've cited at the very start this verse that Satkarma Nipuna Vipra Mantra Tantra Visharada Avaishnava Guruna Sasyat. If one is not a Vaishnava, he cannot be a guru in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness. However, many people in India specifically, I would say, they have their gurus mainly in the bygone ages in Dwapara Yuga and Treta Yuga. We have in the Shastras so many mentions of gurus, not only Kripacharya, Dronacharya, but many others in the Mahabharata, who are teaching or teachers, revered, and not only teachers, but they're acharyas, Krip Acharya, Drona Acharya. They are the authorities who teach by their example. The word Acharya means he who teaches by his example. So in those days, there were teachers who taught martial arts, who taught the science of war between Kshatriyas, we speaking about a different age and different civilization, a civilization in which Kshatriyas fought on the battlefield, not that they went and killed innocent civilians, women, children, and old people. Today we're barbarians, not this is not war, this is genocide or even less. So anyhow, you're absolutely right that guru in this sense is anyone who teaches specifically an art, either martial art or other arts like music or architecture, and other arts. But one has to accept a master who has mastered his art, right? He's a guru. Like we have here one Mataji who is a professor of what's it called? Bharatanatyam, traditional Indian dance. And she had her guru in India. She learned how to dance. And now she is herself also a guru for dancing Bharatanatyam. Yes, we have also had other gurus, for example, for architecture, and we have these kind of gurus or teachers. So yes, the word guru refers also to teachers in general, but it definitely does not have the material or mundane connotation it has today, where people use the word for anything and anything. So you are right, definitely, that it's also a guru. But in our tradition, in ISKCON, in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, we accept gurus who are Vaishnavas. If they're not Vaishnavas, they're not gurus. That's our line of gurus, I must say.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the beautiful answers. I believe this is a very, very important subject matter we're trying to discuss here. And somehow by Guru Krishna's mercy, you are here speaking about it, sharing about it. And because I believe you are capable of helping us understand this subject matter better. So Guru and Krishna have arranged for you to share this with us today. And I say it's very important because we are all here struggling devotees because we want to attain Krishna. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained to us that in order for us to Krishna, there is a science. The science is that the individual prays to Krishna, and then Krishna does not reveal himself to the individual right away, but he will direct that particular person to go to his devotee. And then by the mercy of the devotee, then the individual will attain Krishna. So this guru factor is very, very important. Yasha Prashada Bhagavad Prashada, Yasha Prashada Nagati Kutupi. Now we have a similar thought in African tradition also, that one should always follow the advice of the elders. And things are getting bad, but still in Africa, lots of people have so much respect for the elders because that is the tradition. Now, my question is, do we follow what the guru is saying or what the elder is saying simply because he is the guru or he is the elder, and therefore we follow whatever he says? Or we follow the guru, whatever he says, or the elder, whatever he says, because he is speaking the truth? And I have a follow-up question, but I would like to get your response to this. Do we follow authorities? Do we follow guru? Do we follow elders? Do we follow superiors simply because of the name, of the title, of the position, or because they are speaking, representing the truth?
Well, actually, I remember when I was once on Sankirtan in Germany, I went to visit a Catholic monastery, and I met the abbot of this Catholic monastery. He was a very nice gentleman, very open-minded. And I remember he told me something which is keeping me more or less like, since that day, very much alert. And he said that the supreme authority is our conscience. If you act against your conscience, you're actually going against the highest authority. We have our conscience. We wouldn't do something illegal or criminal if our conscience would not stop us from doing such a thing, isn't it? Any normal person has his conscience. He wouldn't kill somebody, he wouldn't lie, he wouldn't steal, he wouldn't do all these sinful activities which are common to thieves, to criminals. So a normal person, a healthy person, follows his conscience. So if the authority in ISKCON wants us to go against our conscience, if our conscience tells us, no, this is something which is wrong. For example, if the authority tells us, go and steal from the karmis or break into people's houses and steal their money, our conscience would tell us, no, this is criminal. And we would tell it to the authority, so-called, that we cannot do that because our conscience doesn't allow us to do such a thing. Our conscience does not allow us to be criminals, right? Unfortunately, it happened so that in those days we were manipulated by persons. It happened so, not to me personally, I must say, although, of course, also it wasn't very nice. For example, I'll be very honest with you. In the 80s, our authorities, the GBCs or the gurus, the zonal gurus in those days they were called, they told us that we should go out And instead of selling Prabhupada's books to people, we should go and sell them oil paintings, which were fake oil paintings, which were made in Hong Kong in some kind of a factory, mass-produced paintings. And we were instructed by our authorities that we should go door to door and tell people these are artworks made by good artists somewhere in our country, and that these pieces of art are at a price which was like sometimes 100 times higher than the purchasing price that we bought them from Hong Kong, from these mass producers in Hong Kong. So we were cheating people, we were lying to the people constantly, right? And I must say that still now I consider that I was manipulated. I was manipulated, alienated by my so-called authorities to do such a thing, which was against my conscience. I don't like to lie. I mean, any normal person doesn't like to lie to people. That's a normal attitude. I mean, this is what we call in the Christian world, they call the golden rule, right? We have this golden rule that your conscience, that means Paramatma, your super soul, tells you, no, don't do it. You know, don't steal, don't take drugs, don't have illicit sex, don't kill others. These are things, I mean, we have even in the Christian tradition, they have the 10 Commandments, right? Not most of the people don't follow them either. But in general, to say our conscience is the supreme authority, that's something which I've learned. And therefore, if somebody will ask me now, go and sell paintings to support ISKCON, I would say no. I mean, I'm not going to cheat people. Yeah, I just back out of it. Yeah. So these are extreme examples.
Yeah, excuse me if I may interject, because it's a bit difficult for me to accept that our conscience should be the ultimate judge as to what is right, what is wrong. I'm very happy you referenced the Christian teachings that I think Lord Buddha also said the same thing. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and it's considered to be a golden rule. But this golden rule is only viable if it is performed by people who are spiritually advanced, people who have higher developed conscience than if whatever they are judged based on their conscience, if it does not tally up, then they may object it. But if someone's conscience is very, very degraded, and someone is giving him a higher philosophy, spiritual enlightenment, which does not go well with his tamasic conscience, would he have to say, it does not go with my conscience, so I'm going to drop it? As we speak, there is a particular culture. Now, if you visited that culture, automatically, they will offer you a woman amongst them. Not a woman, maybe women amongst the community for you as a man visiting them for sex, which in a developed society is nonsense. But in this culture, it is adored. So I am thinking that this conscious thing being like a final judgment to whether we are doing something right or wrong is only viable if the individual has a very developed conscience, not in a tamasic conscience. In other words, if, like you rightly said, you were following your authorities, but at the back of your mind, you were thinking this is not proper because you had a higher conscience. There were others who also did not feel anything wrong about what they were being told to do because they felt that this is my authority and this is what is asking me to do. So I'm going to do it. So I don't know if you would like to say something in regards to what I just said, but I also have a follow-up question to the first question, whether we follow authorities because of the name, title, position, or because they represented the truth.
So you actually, I understand mainly in Africa, there may be some traditions which are absolutely okay for people who grew up in these traditions, definitely, no doubt. We are, I would say, in a culture which was given to us through Srila Prabhupada in his books mainly, and therefore our conscience, to put it like this, our conscience has a different connotation than the conscience of a person who is a member of a tribe culture in India or in Africa or some other places where the culture is more tribal, in the tribal traditions. So when I spoke about the conscience reflects. Can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
The conscience reflects the authority or the spiritual master to whom we have surrendered. So the Christians, they surrendered, at least they should have surrendered to Christ and to the teachings of Christ. That's a Christian. If he doesn't follow the teaching of Christ, he cannot be called a Christian. Similarly, if we do not follow the teachings of a Vaishnava Acharya, then we cannot be called a Vaishnava, and our conscience will not be properly situated. So Prabhupada specifically taught us truthfulness. He gave even the wonderful example of this Arjuna who went to what was his name? Arjuna Acharya, and he told him, I only accept Brahmins. And this boy, I don't remember the name, he told him, he asked, are you a Brahmin? And the boy said, no, I don't know who I am. So go and ask your mother. And he went to his mother and asked his mother, am I a Brahmana? Who is my father? And she said, I don't know who's your father. So he came back to this Acharya and told him, my mother said that she doesn't know who's my father. In other words, he was so truthful to his guru that he just didn't hesitate to tell him that he's the son of a prostitute. And on the basis of this truthfulness, Arjuna Acharya immediately accepted him as a Brahmin, because a Brahmin is truthful, satyam. Yeah? So conscience, when I spoke about conscience, we have a conscience which has developed on the basis of the instruction of a Vaishnava Acharya, and that is our conscience, right? Whereas if there's an authority who comes, and I tell you like this, the authorities, so-called authorities who have, I would say, misled us to lie to people systematically and cheat and steal and things like that, all of them fell down without an exception. Krishna told them, look, you cannot do this anymore. There's the door, because Krishna is in the heart of everyone, right? And why are you wasting your time in this Hare Krishna movement? Go and found your own movement or go away completely. So that was the reaction. We didn't get the reactions because we were following humbly the authorities, but those who instructed us in the false way, breaking our conscience and actually, I would say, violating us in one way or another, they had the reactions, and that's a fact.
All right, thank you, Prabhu. So do I hereby, I should say, suppose that you are saying, in effect, that Srila Prabhupada I, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, in ISKCON is our gold standard.
Of course.
And that whoever claims to represent Srila Prabhupada cannot go against Srila Prabhupada.
Exactly.
In terms of, okay, all right. So in that sense, in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, there was, it's very interesting, Prabhuji, you were saying, I picked on it because I'm a grihasta. I'm a grihasta struggling devotee. And it was interesting when you said, of course, it's right that we have like 10% of membership that are brahmacharis, brahmacharinis. The rest of us are grihastas, manaprastas, few. Now, in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, I can't think of the chapter, but definitely is in the first book, the first volume, not the second volume, where that was when Srila Prabhupada had just started establishing the GBC. And one devotee traveled thousands of miles to go see Srila Prabhupada, just to complain to Srila Prabhupada about the fighting between grihastas and brahmacharis. And the brahmacharis were saying that the grihastas were useless, they were not serious. And Srila Prabhupada was saying at that time that he just wanted to concentrate on writing his books. And he was saying that, how can I have peace of mind to write my books when someone will travel thousands of miles just to come and complain to me about grihasta not living in a temple and therefore should not have any administrative position in the movement. So Srila Prabhupada said that this has to be resolved by the GBC. And whatever conclusion the GBC arrives at, he is going to accept. But I am assuming that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I am assuming that even though Srila Prabhupada said that he is going to follow whatever the GBC decides, Srila Prabhupada knew better than the entire GBC. And therefore, it was possible, and it could be possible that the GBC may arrive at the wrong conclusion. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada will carefully direct them how to do things the right way or how to arrive at the right decision. Now, Srila Prabhupada is not physically present here with us. So we have to follow GBC. Now, if we follow GBC and GBC goes wrong, do we still have to follow GBC, or we have every right to respectfully approach the GBC and also share our view based on the conclusion they have arrived at? And I'm asking this because as young as I am in devotional service, I have come to know, unfortunately, so many instances where GBC went wrong, where authorities went wrong, and devotees, some devotees were just following them because they were the authorities, and they all went wrong. And most of them lost their devotional service. So my question, back to the first question, are we following authorities simply because they are authorities, or we are following authorities because they are representing the truth? And truth means that what Srila Prabhupada has given us.
Well, in general, as I said before, our movement is in a stage which we are still far away from what Prabhupada wanted as far as the Varnashram system is concerned. I just told you that sannyasis nowadays, and even grihastas, some of them, they have huge bank accounts and they manipulate their money, they manipulate people, things like that. Because this is not Varnashram. This is not Varnashram. This is still the remnants of a system of, I would say, authoritarian dictatorship, which is still lingering in our minds. And we are not ripe. Many of our devotees who are in the position of GBCs, definitely they're not very ripe people. And we have all the right in our to follow our conscience and to act in a way which is not depending, that's the word, on their decisions. We may declare our independence permanent for some kind of reason or this. We may remain neutral. For example, if some decision is made, we as devotees, we may say, okay, it's all right, you can do it, but unfortunately, I have some other duties to do. I have my work or this and that. One is not obliged, except when it's brahmachari, of course. But I would say that your grievance, that's the word I would use, towards the some of the authorities in our movement is 100% understandable. I can share that. However, I would say that one should be a little more aware that our movement is developing, which means that we're not in the final stage of our development. Prabhupada gave us the structure how to develop. He couldn't implement Varnashram system during his lifetime, and unfortunately, still now we are lacking, very, very much lacking the desire even to implement a Varnashram society as it should be, based on Brahminical culture mainly, which is truthfulness. And we are still a young movement, and as such, we are going to go through various problems and difficulties. This is unavoidable, and the biggest setback, I would say, is the fact that the younger generation, our children and our youth, in many ways are, I would say, not interested in our movement so much as they could be, due to the fact that they are maybe more clever than we are in many ways to understand that an organization which is new, unexperienced, led by people who are not always, I would say, very experienced themselves either, who are not very Brahminical, and the fact of the matter is that our youth and the children are not very much enthusiastic to participate in our movement. I've seen it many times. Many of our children have been misused and abused, and they are very much concerned about the, I would say, organization as such, and they're not at all interested in becoming involved with. On the contrary, but they're not giving up the authority of Srila Prabhupada, and they maybe also are very much in love with Krishna without being explicitly in love with the GBC. But they are in love with Krishna, and we should fan that love in them as far as possible. So yeah, I understand your grievances. I had the same, and many other devotees have the same. Yeah, but we should, unfortunately, sometimes the synergies which we could actually have from a proper organization, synergy means working together, right, are lost. And there is another phenomena which is opposite, atomization, that everybody goes and in his own corner and does his own thing and doesn't want to be involved. The synergy then is a little bit lost, and that's badly felt. And in America, in England specifically, this synergy has so much disappeared that the only synergy that you can see is the synergy of the Indian devotees, the Indian-born community. They have a synergy because they feel that they're Hindus, you know, and I mean, so this is like theirs. But the white or the black devotees, the local devotees, not so much. The same problem also, they have a little bit, not the same, but similar problems in Russia, where they have 150,000 devotees, local devotees, Russian devotees, but there's also many times this atomization that each temple is for itself, you know, and for the GBC, it's not easy there, mainly today, you know, so anyhow, we're a young movement, so.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. We have Rupanika Prabhu stand up. Rupanika Prabhu, please, thank you for raising your hand up. Just give me 30 seconds, please. Prabhuji, thank you. I do not want to become a leader. And the reason I do not want to become a leader is because it is not an easy thing. And therefore, I take my hat off to every single leader, especially in our movement. I give my utmost respect to every single leader because it's not an easy task. However, if I find a leader or any devotee doing something contrary to what I know Srila Prabhupada has asked us to do, I will respectfully, if I have to, I will respectfully address it to that individual, regardless of your title, regardless of who you are, your position. I will do it. And I'm only praying, and I've always been doing this. I pray that the way I do it is not antagonistic, it's not disrespectful, but in a humble but bold manner to express myself to that particular individual. But I take my hat off to every single leader, especially in school. Now, Rupanuga Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for the beautiful discourse presented, Prabhu. I also respectfully accept the authority that Srila Prabhupada has left in charge for us, that he set up for us in the beginning. And there are serious challenges. But the challenges is not vested in, or let me put it this way, the challenges around the question of discussing one ashram dharma. One of the major challenges that I don't know how to express it, but that I see in the context of Srimad Bhagavatam and the purports around the question of one ashram dharma, if we come, you know, the Srila Prabhupada's final works, which is the cream of our movement, it is the Gaudiyas, you know, Lord Chaitanya. If we look at the Chaitanya Charanam, Chaitanya CC, you know, the like the 9th chapter in the Madhya Leela, writing about you know, where Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Rai have this discourse. If we look at it from where that Van Ashram Dharma is the lowest entry point of that discussion between Ramananda Rai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, and that is the entry point. That's almost like, for me, like Srila Prabhupada lowering the bar for us to chant 16 rounds and following the 4 regulative principles. It's like that entry point of around the question of Vaishnavism, you know. So if we just look at what Srila Prabhupada left us, if we continue and look at that conversation as it continues, we will see the essence of what is a Vaishnava, and we will, you know, see that the challenge that we're sitting with is a lot of our, you know, like I don't read enough. I don't, you know, expose myself enough to what Srila Prabhupada has left. Srila Prabhupada has left everything for us, everything. And a lot of things that we are engaged with now is, a lot of it is like politics that influence us, that skew our values, that we, you know, we are not these bodies, but we're inside these bodies. But the thing is that what we end up, if we take shelter of not what we see, but what we hear from the authorities, properly, as Srila Prabhupada has created the forum for us how to do and to listen with rapt attention to the authorities in where discourses takes place. Outside of that, it is what we engage with is just it is just politics, so it is based on imperfect senses. If the discourses that's presented is like this discourse that's been presented, there is all the invocations is done to be able to guide us to for this assembly to hear with rapt attention. So that when we listen to CC with rapt attention, it actually does assist us in terms of, or assist me at least, in terms of the schizophrenia that I sit with, in terms of struggling to see how we struggle in terms of this house that Srila Prabhupada has built. So the point that I'm actually making is that, yes, Varn Ashram Dharma is important, but it is the entry point. It is the entry point in terms of Vaishnavism, which is, and within that we find that's only, what is more important is that bhakti, is Vaishnavism, not the Brahman, talking about the importance of Brahman. The Brahman is not, it comes out of Vaishnav that follows, a Vaishnav that follows, and not that is informed by a sensory balance, and the sensory balance of the foundation of the knowledge for discernment comes through Shravana, through the hearing. I suppose I'm just babbling, but yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I must excuse myself because it's already late and I have other duties.
Yes,
and I sympathize with Rupanuga Prabhu's comments, very much so. I would just like to say that, as I said at the very start, that a Brahmana who's not a Vaishnava cannot be a guru. So we are accepting the Vaishnava culture from the very start, and Varnashram is simply, of course, a social framework within which an organization can work. And the essence of the organization, of course, as you said properly, is Shravana, hearing. And that's what we've done now for more than 2 hours, if I can.
Yes.
So I hope we'll continue with the Shravana. Thank you for inviting me, having me here in your wonderful platform. And I hope that you will be happy in Krishna consciousness under the guidance of our spiritual master, common spiritual master, or Param Guru, or our Guru, Srila Prabhupada.
Jai. Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji. And we thank you from so many fronts, being who you are, being an uncle of ours, and being so generous and sharing your love and wisdom with us every now and then, and also staying so late because it's late to your local time. So there are so many fronts that we express our thanks and appreciation to you. So dear devotees, without further ado, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our appreciation to our revered uncle, His Grace Jayagurudeva. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pancha Kalpa
Jai.
All glory to His grace.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.